Welcome back. We're going to spend just a few minutes this time looking at a couple of the CSS3 selectors that we can use that you actually are using for one of your upcoming projects, actually your current project, Project 2. So I am in our vertical navigation HTML file that we just wrapped up from the previous tutorial, and so I'm going to keep working here just to give us a good file to work in. So I want to go in and select my container div. So I've just clicked somewhere within the file, and I'm going to come down and select the container div, and I'm going to apply to my container div the box shadow and border radius are the two things we're looking at. So the first one, with the container div selected, I'm coming over to the CSS designer, and we're going to edit a rule. So I look right here in the middle, see where it says selectors, and there is pound container. So there's my existing rule for the container. So I'm going to work with that. So for the first one, for the box shadow, I come down into the properties area and I go to the background region. So you see the icon right here. Looks like it has a little fade on it. So I'm going to click on that. First thing I can see there is background color. I'm going to scroll down, and there's the box shadow as I get down there. So the box shadow will actually put a shadow around the edge of this div. Once upon a time, it used to be, before we had this selector, that if you wanted any shadows, you had to go create an image. And so obviously that had its problems. So if I had a div that I wanted a shadow around it, I had to create probably another div for the shadow to go in. I had to make it match the size and shape of my div. And then if anything changed, I had to go recreate it. So it was very inconvenient. So now I can just use this box shadow property here. So I'm going to come down here and start giving it some numbers here. So we get a horizontal shadow and a vertical shadow. So horizontal shadow, I'm going to set that at 5 pixels. And what that means is that the shadow will extend 5 pixels to the right of the div. If I wanted it to extend to the left of the div, I would use a negative number. So I could use a -5. Vertical shadow works in a similar way. So I'm going to set this one at 5 pixels as well. And so this will cause the shadow to hang down below the div. If I wanted it to go above, I would use, again, a -5. I can set a blur amount and I can set a spread amount. I'm going to set my blur to 5 pixels as well. Keep it nice and simple. I'm not going to put a spread on it right now, but I am going to go down to the color and select a color. Now you might be tempted just to pick a nice gray, because a shadow would look good in gray. I would suggest, though, that you come up, and I'm going to kind of find the range that my background color is already. So it's kind of this mustardy orange-yellow color right now. So I'm going to move into that range and then pick a darker version of that for my shadow. If I use a gray, just a neutral gray, it's going to look kind of harsh. You'll really see the shadow. If I pick a color more like this, then it'll look more natural, like the color is coming up through the shadow. In fact, if I was really doing this, I would probably find my background color there and run over to Photoshop and find a darker version of it. But I'm just going to eyeball it here. So I like that shade. That one's looking pretty good. Maybe I'll go just a little bit darker. So I'm going to select that one. Okay, so I have the horizontal shadow, the vertical shadow, the blur set. I've got a color set. Now I don't see anything over here in the user interface of Dreamweaver, but if I go to the live version, there we go. Now you can see it. So that's not a bad shade, actually. It looks pretty good. It looks pretty natural, like the background color is coming through it. Okay, so you notice that it only shows up when you're in live view. It doesn't show it otherwise. Okay, the one other thing that I want to look at is the border radius. And this is what we usually refer to as rounded corners. So again, I'm going to go back and select my container. I'm going to put it on this one. And this time, again, making sure I have pound container under selectors here, and then down under properties. Now this is the border radius, so I want to go down to the border section. Don't have a border on this one at the moment. I'm going to scroll down, and there you find border radius. Notice that we can set each corner independently of the others, so you could set them all different from one another. That'd be kind of unusual to set all 4 of them different, but you could. I could go right to the middle, see where it says click to change all the properties, so I could link them together by doing that, and then come pick, like, let's say 20 pixels, so you see how it set all of them at the same time. Now again, if I come over here and go to live view, now you can see how I've rounded corners. You can see the one on the lower left. If I scroll to the right, you can see the other two. You actually can't see the upper left one at the moment, and that is because the sidebar div has a background color, and so it's hiding it right there. We could fix that. Actually, let's go look at fixing that real quick. The way we would fix that is I'm going to go back to my container again, and what you have to do is you have to set the overflow on it. So because the sidebar div is hanging outside of that, we want to hide that. Now that's one of those properties that I can't really set over here in the CSS designer. So I'm going to go over here to code, but I need to go to my CSS file here, which actually gives us a good opportunity to look at the code we're generating. Okay, there's my container. I'm going to go to the very end of it, add a property here, overflow, colon, space, and I'm going to say hidden, so that that area that extends out of it is hidden away. So with that hidden, I'm going to click back over. Now you notice how I have the nice clean rounded corner. So it's hidden, that sidebar that's hanging out. While we're here, let's look at the code that we've generated. Okay, so border radius is right here. So you see border radius, 20 pixels. Right now, we have all four corners set the same, and so it just uses the one number right here. If I was to call them out independently, I would actually have four numbers. So I could have, say, 5 pixel, 10 pixel, 15 pixel. Oops, I got extra space in there. 5, 10, 15, and 20 pixel. Click back over. Okay, you see how they've all changed now. And so now they're all different from one another. Okay. And so apparently they are starting, let's see, the 5 is my upper left. You see how small that is? Then here's my 10, upper right. 15 is lower right. And 20 is lower left. So that's the 4 numbers, okay? So kind of unusual that you might do something like that. You might do something like something you see more often. I might set them like 0, 20. And see now 0 here, I have no rounded upper left. 20 pixel upper right, but 0 again down here, and 20 over here on lower left, so they alternate. So 0, 20 is actually the same as going 0, 20, 0, 20. It just repeats. So if I put the 4 of them in there, you see it's unchanged. It's doing the exact same thing. So you can either do the 4, or you can simplify it down to the 2, which is just a shortcut. Okay, that's the code for border radius. Box shadow. Okay, there's our box shadow that we drew right there. Let's look at the code for that one. Here it is right above it. So you see that it's box shadow, 5 pixel, 5 pixel, 5 pixel, and then that's the color that we called out. And so they're in the order that we called out. So again, if we flip back over here and look, there's a box shadow. So you see the horizontal, vertical, blur. We didn't do a spread, then we did color. So the numbers in code are horizontal, vertical, spread, and then the number. Now notice it actually used 2 lines of code here. So we get this one with a dash in front of it for WebKit box shadow. Sometimes you come across these on the newer properties for CSS. These are CSS 3. And what it indicates is that it's not, the different browsers are not handling it the same way at the moment. So it has created a rule specifically for browsers that are using the WebKit engine. And so it has to call it out separately. Sometimes the code looks a little bit different. It really doesn't here, but WebKit engines are currently using this one. We put it first because eventually this won't be needed anymore. And so, because of cascading style sheets, this one sitting below it would override the other one. So this rule would take precedence when this one is no longer needed. Okay, so that is how we go about creating box shadow and border radius in CSS.